Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the HumanizeHer podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lockheimer.
And I'm your co-host, Elizabeth.
Today, we are speaking with Erin Gore, CEO and founder of Garden Society. She has a background in chemical engineering and worked in industry for 10 years, and then decided to pivot and start her own cannabis company. Yes, we have a lot to talk about and learn from her. So, let's dive in. We're so excited to have you here, Erin. So thank you for saying yes and your time with us here today.
Thank you for the invitation. Equally excited.
You know what's amazing is we're going to get into your story, but so I'm a computer engineering, by trade is my major. And I love that your background was a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, this doesn't compute. Here she is, CEO of this cannabis, industry and all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
And then also a chemical engineering background. And then I looked at some of your history of you worked in the corporate world, and can you just, and then we're going to get to like where you're at now, but like how was that world? And then we'll get to where you're at now.
Yeah, totally. So I was a chemical engineer. I walked onto the basketball team at Wisconsin. And so I'm 6'2", so I'm sitting today, but when you see me, I'm tall, right? So my cannabis journey actually started like really early on as an alternative for pain, because I had both my hips rebuilt as in my 20s. So I was on a really fast slope of opioids, Ambien, more opioids, more Ambien to try to sleep. I was in so much pain at night, I couldn't sleep. And so in 2008, I got a job. I graduated college in 2006, got a job in Chicago. 2008, moved for the company to California and got my medical card. Met my now husband, then boyfriend, and he was like, you need to try weed and you need to try cannabis. So my journey has actually been very intertwined between the two, but it's like kind of cannabis has always been in my life on the side, if you will.
Because it helps with the pain.
Exactly. Yeah. So out of college, I went to work for Henkel, a German CPG company. I worked in the chemical factories on the south side of Chicago, distilling cosmetic derivatives, basically.
Wait, what does that mean exactly?
Large scale. We took rendered animals and made cosmetic derivatives for your leading consumer goods products on the shelf. So it was a very disgusting job.
I was going to say, did I hear that? So when we buy products that say no animal cruelty, definitely look out for that?
Definitely buy those.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but definitely don't buy certain brands. I rendered an elephant once that went into cosmetics. So anyways, that's a side conversation for another day.
Wow.
I worked there for a while, went through some really difficult times, but also had, entry-level big company experience, and then was able to like work my way up in Henkel doing a lot of different things and got to see the country and eventually got to see the world with Henkel. So it was good. I think it was like a lead-in to me building my cannabis company, because I always say I was an entrepreneur and that I got to build a lot within the company. They had to build me a bathroom. So I was the first woman to work in the factory.
Wow.
Okay, that's not where I thought you were going to go with build.
Yeah, they had to literally build me a bathroom. So like check for that. Because I went through a lot of sexual harassment early in my career, and actually for my entirety of my career in different variations. And so we got to build and lead the first employee resource group for women within Henkel as one of the outcomes of that. I was the first woman to get their Lean Six Sigma black belt within Henkel. So it was like really interesting. And then I got to go on and build a business unit for them from the ground up. So a global business unit for sports and fashion. So Nike, New Balance, Adidas, do M&A of a Korean and Taiwanese company, bring it all together and actually like scale it.
Wow.
Inside a big corporation, which was quite the experience.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to soak in all these things you just said.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack.
There's a lot. So when you say you literally didn't have a bathroom.
I literally didn't have a bathroom.
They didn't have a single woman that worked there?
In the factory. So
in the
there
factory.
was the offices over here, and then the factory was a big factory over here. And so it was like about just under half a mile to the closest bathroom.
What? And you had to go and leave the building you work in.
Well, I worked outside in a big, like an oil refinery.
Okay.
Like a factory, like a chemical factory, like a big scale factory. Wow. And you'd have to walk through it and walk out it and de-gown. I didn't even have a place
like
to
a whole
de-gown.
jumpsuit and
and then go. So they luckily built me a locker room with showers and for myself.
Because you'd have to clean all the chemicals off your body and shower.
We didn't have to clean them off your body, but like you you're wearing a factory uniform every day.
Yeah. So did they have to make a uniform for you too?
No, I had that because I'm so tall I can wear men's clothes.
Ugh.
Did you have women eventually join you in the factory ever? Or no?
No, I quit.
No? Oh, before.
I mean, I moved roles before.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I'm assuming maybe now. I would hope.
Yeah, right.
Fingers crossed.
Do you think just thinking about it, was it the location? Is it the industry? Like why is it so bad?
I used to think it was, it's so interesting you asked me that. I used to think it was the industry because, I mean, it was pretty gross, right? I made cosmetic derivatives. I used to think then when I changed divisions within Henkel, it was because it was more uneducated day-to-day people. I just think there's a lot of corporations in the world that haven't evolved and make it such a tough environment for women to succeed that women don't participate, to be totally honest. And I just see how women can start entry level and have the option to move careers or change careers or go back to school instead of being in these really difficult, harsh environments for them. And I think that's why there's not a lot of women.
Do you want to tell a little bit more about why that's the case, or they're not in the industry, or is it the circumstances? I
don't know. I mean, I would say from my point of view, I was adamant not to quit, but I went through a lot of sexual harassment early on from I graduated college and 3 months later, and my first job ever as a chemical engineer in a management trainee program, I was called a slut and a whore by my boss and my co-op at a 40th birthday party where everybody was drunk. And I showed up late because I was supposed to leave town. My flight got canceled because of bad weather. And I said, oh, great, I can go to the party. I showed up at a work party. It was 3:00 in the afternoon, and I was the talk of the party in a bad way. So do you stay? Do you leave? I was nauseous. I was throwing up all weekend. I was really distraught. I was upset. Actually, one of the guys there called it in to the HR department. So kudos to him.
Thank you to that one guy. That one guy.
Thank you to the one man. He's still my friend today. He's such a good man. What was crazy is that, first of all, I didn't do anything to deserve it. Absolutely. Of course, I kept thinking, what did I wear? What did I do? How did I act? But of course, it was the culture and it wasn't me. But it took me a long time to realize that. It took me a lot of therapy to realize that. Then I showed up to work on Monday morning, nauseous, but I had written my speech. I had an older cousin. She's amazing. And she hung out with me all weekend and prepped me, and I was ready to tell them how it was. And I got called into the office and I was convinced I was getting fired. So I was throwing up again. I was so upset. I was vividly sick. And I showed up and it was 5 attorneys, and I had to then go through these settlement agreements and all this stuff. And I agreed not to sue because these people got terminated and da 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 da. And I had never, I was what has happened? I had no concept of what I was going through or what was happening to me or what I said.
You were 3 months after you just graduated in your first job, and you were
so that was all that, and then nobody would go out to lunch with me for the year. So no man would hang out with me in the factory because I was the repercussion and this perception of
just being around you.
And they didn't know that
I didn't. He's the whistleblower.
I didn't call it in, right?
Yeah.
This man called it in. So it was a very tough time. I was in a rotational program, so I was supposed to rotate to Amsterdam. Hence, I've always been a stoner.
You're that sounds like a good plan.
They told me I was confirmed. I had gotten rid of my apartment. I had sold my car. I had a going away party. It was 3 days before my trip was supposed to leave. I had a flight booked, everything. And they canceled my trip because of the state of the business. It was no longer viable for me to go to Amsterdam. So I think it was just the plant manager's way of fucking with me, to be totally honest. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say
we already said what we're explicit. Is that what the word
there
on
was
the podcast?
one woman I had met in Chicago that they would have a lot of corporate meetings come through at this big company. And there was one woman I had met in the technical division, the only other woman I had seen. And I messaged her because I got her number last time I saw her. And I said, this happened to me. They canceled my trip. She said, call me if you ever need me. And I called her. And she's like, get on a plane tomorrow and fly out and interview with my team. And I said, okay, but how? She's like, here's my credit card number. Book your ticket. Get on a plane. Call in sick and interview. So I flew to New Jersey. I called in sick. And she said, Kansas City, Cincinnati, or LA. So it was a different division within the same parent company. And I said, well, I was about to move to Amsterdam and I don't have a place to live, so I might as well go to LA.
Yeah.
So
La La
that's
Land.
how I got to California.
Nice.
It was that wild.
That is very wild.
It
That
was
is
wild.
so crazy. And thank goodness for her.
Right? Exactly.
I mean, she just pulled you out and she was like, I'm going to be your safeguard.
And she
that's what
was my
did.
safeguard. Yeah. And so I think it's like an interesting theme. So like I didn't have quite as traumatic experiences, but for the entirety of my career there, I was told I was bitchy because I was on the reg, or I was, you're what did they say? Unable to work with you because it's that time of your month. You know, I mean, all these like really patronizing, really misogynistic undertones. I always worked harder and got promoted out. I got to do some really great things because I had really great champions at the top. That woman, her boss, I had a senior vice president who really believed in me. And they were able to pull me out of situations or promote me, but it also made me really tough.
Yeah.
Because it made me really gritty. It made me able to stick up for myself. It made me able to like have a vocabulary around what I was comfortable with and not comfortable with. You know, some stuff I am willing to let fly off my back, but some stuff is like, you know, a hard no. And so I was able to succeed and do well. I got to build a $139 million business, $31 million in EBITDA in 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I didn't really appreciate what a balance sheet was. I had actually no clue what a balance sheet was. I just knew I loved building businesses and I didn't want to do it for anyone around me anymore. And so I had my 4th miscarriage. I had a garden party with 50 women there. I won Business of the Year at Henkel. I had won all these awards and I was miserable. And I was like, I don't think you can be a successful businesswoman and have a family and have friends. It's just not possible unless you're so wealthy you can hire it out.
Right.
So I was in kind of a dark place. I had a bunch of women over and we smoked weed and we made pot cookies and all these women had the same problems I had. And I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking normal.
Yeah, these are my people.
These are my people. And I was like, this pressure I put on myself, I was like, this is just what every other woman deals with.
Yeah. What a massive therapy session.
It was
You got
massive.
it all out all at once.
And I
I
was
wish
like,
I was there.
I know you should have been there. Okay, we'll have to recreate it.
Okay.
And I was like, I need to build a company for these women and to help people feel normal and help
that
them
was
have
your
better.
moment that you felt you needed to do it.
That was my moment. Yeah. So I
So-
quit 2 weeks later.
Wow.
I was always trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was always going to do something for myself. I always was like, I was on the brink, but then, you know, when you get in, you're having a lot of success
Yeah.
and you're growing. And I was working for the coolest companies in the world, building I got to help build Nike, a factory in Memphis, and Nike, a factory in Mexico. And I got to travel all over the world with Henkel for the footwear industry. It was moronically stressful. And I had more friends on United than I did anywhere else. But
Oh my goodness. And
You're
how
just
long were you
in
at
it.
how long were you at Henkel for?
I was there 11 years, but I was in that last role for about 4.5 years.
And you
Yeah.
enjoyed it until you realized you're not enjoying it, actually.
I enjoyed it until I got to I love building businesses. So there's parts of it I still love to this day, but it was never enough. It was never good enough. It was always like I could have explosive growth and I always missed the forecast or underperformed for something. So I was in LA for a couple of years, San Fran for a couple of years. I moved in with my then husband or then boyfriend, now husband. So I was I live in Healdsburg, and I started like making edibles for myself with my hip journey. And I realized at the time the dispensaries were wild. They were like so many crazy potencies or not. This is pre 64, right? Beautiful products and terrible products. And so I needed to function. It was really important to me to control my experience and be able to have it be reproducible and trustable. And so I started making edibles for myself. I had my own laboratory. I had this like tinkered.
Wow.
I made my own hash. I made my own extracts. I did like all sorts of stuff. And then my laboratory got a little bigger. This is my kitchen lab, right? And then a girlfriend caught
Making eggs and then here's your lab.
Yeah. I'm running like titrates. And then my girlfriend caught wind of it and she's like, I heard you're making edibles like scale with like interesting things. And I was like, yeah, come over. But my husband and I at the same time had a brand with Constellation called Tom Gore Vineyards. So like my husband's in the wine business. We were having all this success for him. My job was really successful. So the stigma was really real. I was like, ooh, I don't know if people want to know about this. I should hide it. And I was like, are you sure you want to come over? Because this was like my secret.
Yeah.
And so she came over and she told another girlfriend and they came over then all of a sudden I started having about like monthly, every other month, every month, something like that, parties where girlfriends would come over and we'd make weed products.
Wow.
We made bath bombs, we made lube, we made whatever.
What do you do with a bath
People
bomb?
would come-
I'm just wondering, what do you do with a bath bomb?
Take a bath.
Okay, but I know, but like it's in there and it makes you laugh. I need to be educated on some of these things.
Snorting a bath bomb or something.
Like, you said edibles. I'm like, what are you going to do with a bath
And
bomb?
that's like the stigma right there, right? What do you do with a bath? You don't smoke a bath. You take a bath.
It's like, okay, like CBD oil or THC oil, like the same idea. Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
I'm
so
with you.
then my
Okay.
parties started growing, and then the old ladies at the golf course were like, "I heard you have pot cookies. Can you sell us some?"
Okay, just so we're clear, this was before it was legal?
Yeah.
It was always legal.
Okay. Just,
Well, it's not.
just want to know what kind of factory
Okay, so
you're
like
building.
we run a very gray world in the cannabis world, so it's still technically illegal in the eyes of the federal government, right?
Right.
Because it's a Schedule I drug, which is a straight up illegal, no medical value drug. In California, it was adult use legal in 2018 is when it went into effect.
Okay.
2016 when it was voted, but then it was only legal if you were in a legal licensed facility. The medical market went into effect in 1996. So if you were a patient, 1996 to 2018, you were allowed to have, to make, to grow.
Got it.
And you could sell if you had other patients you cared for. So at one point I had a binder of prescriptions and patients that I was their collective caretaker. I mean, true story.
badass.
Oh my
This
goodness.
is how I started
Well,
it. I had
this is Dr. Erin.
no, I wasn't the doctor. They had to get, you like
you do that.
Zoom a doctor and they give you a script. And I was just like I was just the pharmaceutical rep. I was
And you
distributing.
could, okay.
Yeah, I could legally sell them medicinal cannabis products through my collective model. So,
They bring you the script and you fill it.
yep.
Wow. So you started gardens.
And I started working with old ladies at the golf course, and then I started having golf parts. I mean, this
I
is
love
like
that
a
it's
whole
old
thing.
ladies at the golf course.
Yeah, they were
'cause
all
what
like
else are they
over
doing?
70. They were all like over 70.
They're
They
like,
were.
finally, they're like from the 60s, and they're like, yes.
They're like, it makes me feel
Oh,
better,
that
and I
makes
know I'm
sense.
so much better.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. They're
60s
like,
girls, they're like,
right?
it's bad.
Yeah, and then also they're in a lot of pain.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a lot of things.
Exactly. So I quit my job. Let's see. I quit it in April 2016. I didn't actually really quit. It was like, you know how it goes, a whole negotiation until when you're really done. So I probably was really, really done like end of May 2016. I freaked out. I took a couple months off because I was so stressed out commuting to Shanghai. So I took a couple months off. I freaked out. I ran for public office. So I am still a director on our local hospital board. So I ran for the hospital board under the guise that it would legitimize me if I was an elected official for a hospital running a weed company.
This story just gets better and
So
better.
legit.
Which is true. It
So
is.
you ran for office and you won your first time running for office?
Yep, nobody ran against me. So I was a shoo-in.
Okay.
So that was good. And then I started my company. And so it's been quite the journey.
My goodness.
Oh my.
So your hip problems, I just am curious, like what was happening and how, like, cannabis was the solution for you, even though you tried all these opioids and things that you said.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so that's part of your
Cannabis
journey.
won't solve a problem. So I tell this all the time to people. Cannabis does not solve your problems. Cannabis is not going to redesign my hips to be genetically more sound or repair my injuries, but it's going to help my nervous system manage the pain in a more holistic way that like de-escalates my nervous system so it's not as painful. There's not as much anxiety. Because it's a bad cycle. If anybody's been in chronic pain, you're afraid to go to bed because you know you're going to be in chronic pain. So then you're anxious going to bed, which means you can't sleep. But then because then you're in pain, which you can't sleep. Because then you're anxious that you're not sleeping, and then that whole cycle repeats. So it's very vicious. So it's a tremendous. Like cannabis has so many health benefits. Health and Human Services just did a big report. It's all over the internet. They recommended it gets delisted to Schedule 3. Which fingers crossed it does this year because of all the proven medical benefits.
And what is Schedule 3? What is that exactly?
Schedule 3 is like the same thing as some like heavier dose codeines. There's like a government schedule from the FDA of which drugs fall into which categories. So actually fentanyl, which is a tragic drug.
Oh, geez.
And it's, responsible for so many deaths in our country is Schedule 2. So fentanyl has a more lower federal status of illegality than cannabis does. And so cannabis is, if you look back to cannabis prohibition, it's all around racism in this country. It's all around the war against Black people and disadvantaged communities. It's all around IP rights. So the federal government owns the most amount of IP in cannabis.
What's that?
Like all of the patents that they filed them in 1981 before it was listed as Schedule 1.
Intellectual properties.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So they have patents, they have all sorts of stuff on cannabis. So they recognize, the federal government recognizes the medical value of cannabis, but then made it Schedule 1. So it's really got a kind of sad past and a gloomy past tied to white wealth and, really trying to disassociate from Black communities and punish Black communities and brown communities. And so, hopefully, I think unfortunately with the legalization of cannabis, not all states are doing a good job to like really reinvest in those communities that have been so harmed by the war on drugs. But there's a lot more knowledge and there's a lot more effort towards it. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Not to divert the conversation.
No, it's actually perfect because I think it's great to get, we're talking about the health benefits and what you experienced from it, but also just like the misconceptions. Also, if we can go down that path, that'd be great because I think people get paranoid because like if you look at the history, right, it was illegal. People were in jail because if they sold it or got caught with it, and then is it addictive or is it not? And there's not all these studies. So like, can you educate us on like where things are at, what studies are out there?
Yeah, I can try. There's so much information. Okay. We could talk for 10 hours on this in and of itself. Okay, so one thing that everybody has to remember is that because it was Schedule 1, it was prohibited from being researched by any federally funded university or medical system. So the reason there is not enough research out there is because they were prohibited from researching it. So if they found out they researched it through federal dollars, all their federal funding would be pulled. Ooh. So there was a huge inability to make any medicinal progress through the normal medicinal research channels that we're all used to. Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Stanford, medical schools, universities, all that stuff because of this Schedule 1 status, right? And the Schedule 1 status was put in place in 1981, Nancy Reagan, war on drugs, war on Black people. That's when it all started. So the reason there isn't more medical research is only because of its scheduling, not because it doesn't have it. I think it's a really important distinction.
Very interesting.
Now, because there is actually some changes in Congress and some changes to allow more research to happen, people recognize the disassociation. Also, the anecdotal data is over the top obvious with how it helps epilepsy, how it helps pain, how it helps cancer, chemotherapy byproducts. It won't solve your cancer, but it will help with your chemotherapy, your nausea, all the stuff, right? So now they're allowing more research and there's certain things that have started coming. So what they have proven overwhelming with the Health and Human Services, report is it does have extreme medical value. And so the problem is it's still not like standardized to be accepted for certain, like I can't go into a store and say this is for pain or this is for sleep because there hasn't been FDA approved trials on it.
I see.
So the FDA approved trials can't happen because it's still Schedule 1. So it's a complicated
it's like a chicken
situation.
and egg thing. You're stuck. You can't even if you want
to.
to.
The best thing to do is talk to your doctor. More and more doctors talk about it these days. And then to also keep a journal. So I think cannabis is such a natural plant. Like I'm a plant mama at the end of the day. I have a huge garden. Just like I have my Roma tomatoes and my herbs and my lion's mane mushroom. I have my weed and it's beautiful. And so I think like Mother Earth provides.
Yeah.
And plants over prescriptions all day long. But keep a journal because it's complicated in the world of cannabis because of the bifurcation by state, the lack of federal oversight, the bifurcation by product type and effect. And there just really isn't that like knowledge base that we all really want to be there.
And even dosage, right? I mean, because you could take too much and then it could be, you could maybe think you're crazy or something like, who knows, right?
Exactly. Obviously don't take edibles and drive.
Yeah, or like mixing with alcohol and all those things.
Alcohol will amplify everything. If you take alcohol with prescription drugs, it's going to amplify it.
Same thing, right?
So you got to use common sense around cannabis a lot. And I always recommend people, especially new consumers, to keep a journal and write down what they like, write down what they don't like.
And there's different types, right? Yeah. So, and how many different types are there? Or
there's like, I don't know, a gajillion. There's 86 different cannabinoids in the plant.
Cannabinoids, that's
that have been identified, and they're still being discovered today. So a cannabinoid is THC, CBD, CBG, THCV. So cannabis is a living plant, so it's been bred, right? Male, female, they breed it. They have genetics. They're called cultivars. And cultivars are being bred and crossbred at a rapid pace. So just like how many types of tomatoes are there?
There's a lot, yeah.
How many types of cannabis is there? Cannabis gets you high, so probably a lot more than there are tomatoes.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I
less
love
incentive.
with this conversation right now.
And actually in Hawaii, it's illegal in its current state, but there's like a different version in Hawaii. Are you aware of that?
Okay, so Hawaii is actually a rec use, but it's very hard to find a rec store. And then it's medically allowed as well. And then there's other forms. So
there's other forms because I saw like a little when I was there recently. I'm like, what is this like?
Yeah.
Almost like a food court type of truck that was there, and they were selling this, but they said it wasn't that version. I was
Doesn't
just
it have a
curious.
specific name?
Is it
like
18? It was some version. I forget what it
So
was.
Delta 8.
Delta 8. That's what I heard.
Delta 9. So this is like super important, I think, for all listeners out there.
Educate us.
So the Farm Bill is another federal government program. The Farm Bill drives all of our food infrastructure, right? So it does crop subsidies, milk subsidies, eggs. Like how the hell are eggs so expensive anymore? So the Farm Bill is really important for like the fabric of America, right? The Farm Bill legalized hemp cultivation in 2018. It legalized hemp products. Okay. It did not regulate hemp products. It just said it's now legal to grow hemp and make products from hemp. Hemp is CBD, and hemp can be turned into THC. Mm-hmm. So now you have a federal program that says it's legal to do it here, but you have state programs to say it's legal to do it here in this way. They're competing programs. And so the federal program says you can't have over 0.3% THC, but it doesn't say anything about Delta 8. So, and Delta 8 is more intoxicating than THC. Oh. So a lot of these companies and brands have taken the federal program and found workarounds to make intoxicating marijuana products because consumers want them.
Right.
And the government, the state governments and the federal government have not progressed cannabis legalization and access fast enough to be able to meet consumer demand. So consumers are finding it all these alternative gray ways. So I highly suggest against Delta 8. It's a manipulated chemical product. It's also untested, unregulated. So like if you're going to buy weed, buy it in the legal channels, buy it either through a medical program or a recreational adult use program. Don't buy Delta 8 or hemp-derived products on the internet because they are not as effective and they're laced with chemicals basically.
Oh,
That's
wow.
so good
That
to
is
know.
everybody hear that loud and clear.
So cannabis is tested for, in California, we're tested for 41 different pesticides and herbicides. So like it's highly quality controlled and state tested, and like you're not going to get a bad product in the legal supply chain market, but there's so much confusion of where to access the product and I just want to buy a weed gummy and you see them advertised now on Amazon and advertised over here. And then like, but my closest dispensary is like so far away and it's weird and it's shady and I have to walk in there. So it's one of the real problems.
Wow.
It's one of the real problems. Like access to consumers is really difficult in cannabis.
That's scary. It's almost like you don't want to be in this hybrid situation at all. It's like just figure this stuff out and get there because
so
it seems
another
more dangerous.
interesting thing is that we didn't get there yet, but my journey in Garden Society, so being a chemical engineer, I started making products for myself. I started making products when I launched the company. Right, I started working with others and like, wait a minute, I'm a better manufacturer and have more manufacturing background than any of these bro stoners. So I'm going to build a factory in California.
Listening all bros stoners, you don't got the skills.
It's true. Let's not name names, but we can. It's okay. So we built a factory in California in Cloverdale, so up in Sonoma County. And then we were going out of state and we were trying to figure out how do we get out of state? How do we bring Garden Society products to new consumers and new markets? Because out-of-state products have a lot more profitability, a lot less California conflict, a lot more opportunity for the company. And so you can't cross state lines with cannabis because it's federally illegal. So everything you do, your total addressable market is the state you're in. So it's kind of you have to make it. You have to buy the weed in the state you're in. You have to make the product in the state you're in, like all the stuff, right? So we launched a factory in Ohio. We just launched a factory in New Jersey. So now we're a 3-state operator.
Congratulations.
And so thank you. But like get consumer access in each state I thought was going to get easier, and it's just getting harder. And it's just getting more confusing and more, what is hemp? What is THC? It's just the government's got to step in and do something.
That's where you're trying to educate people, but you can only do so much.
Right. And you can't use any marketing tools that people are on, like Facebook or Instagram, because again, it's banned.
Yeah.
And it's illegal.
Wow.
Wild, huh?
And then is there any share? You said 3 states, so you can't cross federal lines, but like, can you like share like strategies or anything? Like we could do all that stuff. Like where does when is the line drawn?
The product is the line. So think about the product, like packaging gets made in China and shipped to each state, right? each state has its own design of packaging.
Okay.
Each state has to say its own thing for packaging. Each state has, the product is called something different because of regulations. So in New Jersey, we're launching garden gummies. In Ohio, it can't be recreational, so we can't use any of our wine flavors. I mean, it's really crazy. So it feels like we're operating in 3 languages and 3 countries.
Wow.
It doesn't feel like we're operating in 3 states of one country. It feels like we're operating in Vietnam, Russia, and I don't know, maybe the Middle East. I've never operated in the Middle East, maybe Europe.
Oh, wow.
And none of them are America.
Yeah.
That's a lot of complexity from a business side.
It's hard.
point. Wow.
Yeah. I thought it would be, I'm actually working on my first, I've done quite a few transactions in the business. So I acquired a distressed asset. I acquired a distressed brand, but I'm working on selling one of my states because it's an interesting opportunity. And I'm like, this is really complicated. And like, how do we scale? And can I free up there's a lot of demand for it. So I'm like, can I be strategic and free up some cash to reinvest back in and be smarter about how we scale, because it's really hard to scale with the 3 states. I can't imagine adding a 4th country.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not how you would
country.
actually scale. So how do you scale this business? You talk about contract manufacturing, and how does that work?
Yeah,
Or
so
how are
we
you thinking
make
about growth?
products. Well, when we started, we only made products for ourselves, but we were small, and like the stigma, like, you know, we talked about being a woman in business, and like even in the cannabis industry, right? It's all bros. I'm one of the few female founders left. When I started the company, there was a lot more momentum around women founders and women businesses, but the lack of access to capital made it impossible for these women businesses to survive. I've been, I say lucky, but hard work, tirelessly raising money and like able to continue to fund the company to be able to realize our growth and have enough business background that I could like figure it out, right? But early on, I was like, I have to come up with some multiple revenue channels to really survive and build resiliency into the business. So we started making products for other people because we had the same fixed overhead. And it was like, well, we have to make products for ourselves. We have to have the security bill. We pay the same rent. We have the same staff. Like, how do we drive more revenue through the door? And also I think like, because cannabis, we don't bank. I mean, we bank. So I only transact with ACHs and wires. But I don't have access to like financial services. Like I don't have a line of credit. I don't get any loans. Everything is either equity dollars, hard money investor loans that are like 50% interest. So I like don't have any of those, or cash, like checking account.
Yeah, why is it just like cash in a lot of those transactions?
Because it's federally illegal. So the FDIC
That's why.
The FDIC, like you can't get like a bank loan. You can't get like all these tech startups, they raise their Series A and then they go get a line of credit against their equity round. And all of a sudden they have like double the amount of capital in the bank. And I'm like, wait, people do that?
You can't even do that. Like your options are just
No.
limited.
So with like the checking account value of money you have is the value of money you have, right? It's like that. Okay. So what's interesting for me is like, what's your cash to cash cycle? So like when you spend money to make product till you get paid for that product. So in our own brand, it's really long because we sell to a distributor. Packaging takes, 6 to 8 weeks to arrive, and you have to pay in full because you can't get terms because you're a cannabis company. So you have to pay all the stuff up front. And then you have to make the product that takes like 30 days. Then you have to sell to a distributor and get paid. Then the distributor sell this to the dispensary. Then you finally get the money back, right? So making product for other people, I was like, okay, I'm going to have a fast cash to cash cycle.
Yeah.
So that was really great for us to build that resiliency. Now, as the industry has gotten more distressed, it's been challenging because people just don't pay. So now I'm making them pay up front to spend any time or money on it, right?
Yeah, you have to.
So you have to like really be aggressive. I'm like super aggressively protecting AR because I've just been burned so bad so much. But that resiliency has been great for us, and that helped us scale into Ohio. And then we actually got in New Jersey the Kiva contract. They're one of the largest gummy companies in the country. So we launched them. We've made over 2 million gummies in 4 months. So it's like wild and off to the
are
races.
you the only distributor for them, or they work with others? Like,
Well,
how does
in the
something
state
like
of
that?
New Jersey, we're the only one.
Wow,
We're the
that's
only
great.
women-owned manufacturer in the state of New Jersey right now. So they really prioritized women. I don't really know how they prioritize women because I'm the only one. So
Well, you're a P1.
how is that prioritizing?
Because that's all you got.
I don't know, but hey, we'll take it anyway. So so New Jersey launched in end of April. 4/20 we got our license. I thought it was an
Nice.
April Fool's joke. I was like, whatever.
So it's both our anniversaries.
It's both our anniversaries.
That's so sweet.
So we launched then, and now what is it? September 18th today, and we have 47 employees in New Jersey on 2 shifts.
Wow.
So it's like wild. It's wild.
Wow.
Jeez, that's amazing.
So that's your most successful country right now?
State?
I think
Or
it's
you
all
just
relative.
think of it differently?
Is
Okay.
it really successful?
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
Or state.
or
She
state?
calls it a country.
I call it countries.
Oh, well, her version of a country.
I know
Got
it's
it.
a
Okay.
state, Erica.
Sorry, I saw Becky and I kind of like got eye contact.
we haven't had that
state.
much
How many
product.
gummies did you all have today?
None yet. Maybe that's the problem.
Valid.
I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Back to normal. Okay. That's
Oh,
okay.
I love it. Okay.
So you're the priority woman-owned place in New Jersey because you're the only one.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully more open.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
But so there's another cool thing that you've been working on. And is that in all 3 of your states or is that in just California? You're the first fast acting.
Oh, so that came first actually.
Oh,
really?
before New
Did?
Okay.
Jersey.
How
yeah.
did that come
We're
first?
hopping around.
Yeah, we're hopping around. We're
Yeah.
hopping around. So we launched gummies. When I launched the company, I thought it was really important to have these beautiful artistic edibles because I'm a chemical engineer. I love to cook and bake and create, and it's it's how I show my love, and it's also where I get my creative energy from.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like making avant-garde cakes and just all sorts of weird stuff. So when we were launching, we had beautiful chocolates in these pâte de fouisse. So we launched at the Emerald Cup in 2016.
Okay.
It's a stoner conference for those who don't know it.
No.
It's really, really fun. One of my favorite times, favorite places.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what a pâte de fouille was, and
A
everybody's
what?
like, a pâte de fouille. It's a very beautiful French confection. It's a pâté of fruit.
Oh.
You'll find it at Michelin star restaurants. You'll find it like fancy bakeries in New York. And so we were like, oh, this is a pâte de fouille, and the consumers were like, a what? Like you?
What did you say? A what?
Pâté of fruit. I don't understand. And I'm like, it's a jelly square. And I was like, okay, this is like not gonna work. Then I have this like beautiful product that is like this incredible chef partner of ours we made together. And I'm like, it's a jelly square.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we launched those. They did really great. They were the first gourmet edible in California. It got dubbed by a few magazines and publications. Then it was like impossible to scale it because it's too pretty, too nice, too hard to make, right? So we went back to the drawing board. We launched at that time pre-rolls and flour. We had other stuff in market and going, and we retooled the gummies. And being a chemical engineer with Nike, I worked on a lot of nanotechnology solutions for Nike with alternative materials. And so phoned some friends, went back to I actually use my chemistry textbooks and chemical engineering textbooks. Sometimes it's very trippy.
Oh,
Never
wow.
thought you'd actually look it up. But
Wow.
I called some friends. I was like, hey, let's make this gummy. Let's find like a really like affordable to scale gummy, the right gummy, a delicious gummy. And then let's figure out how to make it fast acting with nanotechnology. So brought that like piece out from my past experience. So we came up with the first full spectrum fast acting. Most fast acting gummies you see in the market are distillate. Distillate is pure THC, so it's not very bioavailable. A lot of people say it gives them a headache. A lot of people say they don't like how they feel when they have a distillate product. Full spectrum is like be like drinking Everclear, maybe vodka versus a Pinot Noir is a full spectrum. So like in the cannabis plant, it's full of lipids and fats and oils and the cannabinoids and the terpenes and all the things that make the plant so efficacious and medical. And so what we do is we take all that together and extract all that off. And then we use that and make the fast acting concentrate that we use to formulate the gummies versus what most people do is they purify just the THC molecule and they leave all that other good part behind. And then they take that THC molecule and they titrate the particle size on it. So it's like a very different product. We were the first ones to market with the full spectrum fast acting. It's done tremendous for us in the marketplace.
Wow.
People swear by and love the gummies. It's why they feel good. They hit fast, but they feel good in its full body and it doesn't leave you that residual like ickiness, I call it.
And so when just so everybody knows, like fast acting, what does that mean? Because usually, like it takes how much time?
Yeah,
versus
usually
this?
edibles they process through your liver when you eat them. So a traditional edible, like a piece of chocolate or a regular gummy, or I don't know, now they have like fish cakes and popcorn and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So that all goes through your liver for the delta 11 hydroxyl transaction, which is how you digest it. It takes about 90 minutes. So it can take between 1 and 2 hours.
That's a long time.
Fully have it onset. Yeah. So in the old edible world, you say wait 2 hours before you have more, because that's how much it fully takes to onset. In the fast acting particle size, what you do is you change the particle size of the molecules. So you nano-emulsify them, you reduce them way down. They absorb through your mucosal, so they absorb through your stomach, your swallowing, your mouth, like your whole blood system here. And it onsets in 15 to 30 minutes. So it's a different kind of technology and chemistry.
Did you patent that?
It's not patentable because it's like really standard practice in every other industry.
Okay. Wow.
Unfortunately.
Oh, I was going to say, hopefully you got a patent on that.
I know. No, it's like normal. It's like actually just like there's not enough, like I don't have the bandwidth or enough capital to do the whole drug delivery studies on it. But like from a process engineering point of view, it's just pretty common chemistry and common
Why
common
didn't anybody do
application.
it sooner then?
I'm not sure.
They probably just didn't have the knowledge.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of just like, they're stoners.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
is
I
what
mean,
it is.
I love my industry. I have so many friends. I don't mean it degrading like that, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But I also had like the right background.
the right background, the
Yeah.
right skill, and you put those two things together and
Yeah.
married, and now you made something even better and a better product.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
You're brilliant.
Oh,
Good
thanks.
job.
Thanks. That's what I tell my investors, all those listening out there.
Are you still looking for investors? Just so we're clear, Erin.
I'm always looking for investors.
Okay.
You're always raising, even if you're not raising, right? I don't have an open round, but I'm always like trying to find good people and looking at how I can continue to like grow the company and do interesting things. I've done my Series A. So I did 2 early stage safe notes, did my Series A, then did a convert round, and then launched New Jersey. So whether I do another like Series B in the near-ish future or look at some M&A capital, it's a really interesting time in cannabis right now because there's so much distressed assets. And so I've been thinking a lot about like, who do I merge with? Who do I buy? How do I build something more profitable and more interesting for like a bigger stage takeout? And in cannabis, it's like really hard because of those economies of scale are really difficult. So like we're still like sussing through like, is it more countries, aka states? Like, do we need a bigger footprint? AKA. Do we need a bigger footprint, or does that just drive the complexity up?
Because
like,
you said everything's different.
everything's different. So like 3 states, we were so complicated, like even HR. And
Is it worth it, the
finance and-
ROI to do that? And
Right.
yeah.
Or are we looking at like, do we have this really strong footprint and we're actually
Right.
trying to drive brands?
Right.
So are we going deeper in the markets we operate in, or are we going to try to like, so there's like a lot of conversations on the table. I'm really proud to have probably, I think, the most diverse cap table in cannabis. So I've really focused on trying to build the cap table with the people I want to be on it to represent.
Super smart.
Good.
Yeah, and like thinking about like my time at Hinkle, like looking around, and I was always the only woman. I was always the youngest. I was always like, you know, I had no diversity. Their diversity was like Western European men. And they're like, we're diverse. We're from Spain and China, or not China. We're from Spain and Germany and the Netherlands. We're diverse. And I'm like, what the heck here?
It's not.
You know what I mean? And so I'm really proud to have like, I ran in this woman, Jana Turner. I don't know if you know her. She's pretty involved in the VC world. She ran a SPV for us for women of color out of New York. So we just didn't focus on women, but like really specifically women of color, and bringing women in. Cause I think, you know, women don't invest, first of all. So that's like a whole conversation.
That's
for
a whole
another day.
conversation itself. They're not even tapped on the shoulders also to
They're
even
even-
invest. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they don't know how to, and
Yeah.
they're like, "What's a safe note?" Or "What about this?" or "What about that?" But then even like having great men who are like, "Look at who's on your cap table," or "Look at the diversity that shows up." And I've been really, I've said no to a lot of money also.
You have. Okay.
Yeah, I walked from a Series A the first time because he just turned into an asshole and started like gaslighting me, and I was like, you know what? I'd rather be broke than be dealing with you.
I love that. Good for you.
Yeah.
Having standards and
was like,
sticking to it, because it's hard, because when you
yes.
need that money and you're building a business,
Oh,
and
it's
it's hard to get
hard.
money. So I'm just curious.
It's
We
hard.
should talk about that. How difficult was it to get money too? Because you made a choice to say no to something.
Yeah, it was really hard. I mean, I was like, looked at my bank account and I was like, I've got 2 payrolls. I'm fine.
That's all you need right now.
I got pounds of weed I can sell and I got 2 payrolls. I'm okay.
Wow.
And I'd rather, I mean, like, because we never have like, it's not like I'm chronically underfunded, right? Like that's what I tell everyone is it's chronically underfunded. But like being really good with cash and being really clear and scrappy. And like, I think because I'm a woman founder, like I not driving black Range Rovers, paying myself, you know, crazy 6-figure salaries and like really like trying to build the company the right way and be responsible. And so I have incredible investors who see that and, you know, really support me in my efforts. It's also really hard. Like you think about it, we can't do typical VC because they have a no sin clause. So most VCs won't touch weed. We also, and I'm like full plant touching. I'm not just like an asset light brand. I like run cannabis factories, right? Garden Society is full plant touching. So most VCs won't touch it. Most family offices won't touch it. You basically have a handful of family offices and high net worth individuals. You can't do like pension fund. You can't do any traditional like
Wow.
PE's complicated. So it's like your pool to where you raise money from is smaller. And then like how you raise money is different.
And as a woman founder, it's probably harder to kind of pitch this and get people to buy into it with that small of a group that you're even pitching to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I would imagine it's like tech, right? Like the boys like the boys and the big gets the big and the bigger you get, the easier it gets. And like, I would imagine it's the same way. It's the same way in cannabis. So I think there's a lot of parallels. I think my past made me resilient and gritty and tough and not afraid to draw boundaries and like really build the company with the values I want to have because I've been in a company where it didn't have those values. So I think like that proves out. I think like what a privilege I get to make cannabis products for a living.
Actually, on that note, and I know we're coming close to time, but as a mom, is that hard? Like you have kids. I don't know how old your kids.
Yeah, I have a 6-year-old.
Yeah, so then you're like, don't do drugs, but then you don't look at this as the same thing. Like
So it's really interesting. I do a ton of conversations with moms around cannabis because I feel like it's my duty and responsibility to educate every step I go, every turn I go. And so it's all just another medicine.
Okay.
So we talk about cannabis all the time in terms of medicine and this is product. We talk about alcohol in terms of this is not safe. Cannabis, this is not safe. Right. We talk about cannabis as like, this makes me feel like my 6-year-old is like, oh, mommy, you like your gummies because it's like a glass of wine. And I was like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like, so like, I really believe you talk about it, you destigmatize it. You don't hide it. You don't run from it.
That's good.
You know, even I have a niece who's 13. She's lovely. But I said to her, you know, if you ever want to talk about it, like, I have a cannabis company. I'm really proud of what I built. Everything's legal. If you're ever concerned or you want to talk about it, let me know.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
Don't do drugs from somebody else.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah,
Because,
you don't know
like,
what you're going to get, and it can be super dangerous. Like, just like you mentioned, there's all these cannabinoids or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And not that I would ever like give my niece product, right?
No.
But it's like, I'm happy to talk about, because there's so much curiosity and they have so much access to knowledge with the internet. And
you
with
want
the
them
kids.
educated the right way.
You don't want to be taking the wrong
exactly.
stuff. That's what I would be more worried about too. And you hear about children getting sick or even dying from these other drugs.
Well, and it's like the alcohol, right? Like they siphon off the vodka bottle and fill it back with water, and some of the parents don't know. And
They
Okay,
can't
I
really
might have
do
done
that.
that when I was younger.
They can't really do that though with marijuana. You can't just like replace it with.
And then we also like
weed.
obviously talk about like lock it up or put it away. Like don't leave it out on the counter.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and also your background is just amazing. How you have chemical engineering and this new business, marijuana mixed together and making a whole new innovative product is amazing.
you.
And
Thank
changing the world of your cap table, making sure it's balanced. It's just off the charts. You're thinking all the right things. So check to you.
I learned from fabulous women like you guys. I mean, I love like being part. I was telling you earlier, I'm on the fringe of the like tech founder world.
Yeah.
A little bit, just like following along, like what's new coming down. How can I, and I have no like real peers as a female founder in cannabis.
True.
There's there's very few of us. There's like 3 of us left that I know of. And so, I mean, I have 3, but like, I admire, because I feel like a lot of you women in tech have like kind of paved the way, even though there's a long ways to go. So
All right. Well, we're all friends now. And this is perfect. This is good. So with that, we always like to end if any woman that you'd like to pay it forward, uplift, and mention as we end.
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple women. There's this new woman, Maggie Connors. She's in New Jersey, New York. She's amazing. She was a founder. She came to work for me. Now she's out there working on trying to find other women in New Jersey that we can support. So having a manufacturing system, I think is really important, not just to like choose the biggest, but also like show up with the values you want, right? And so like working on cultivating women founders out in New Jersey that we can help amplify and scale. So she's doing a really great work there. And then I just love all my Sonoma County people. So all the women here that are doing really cool things.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Amazing. We learned a lot today.
And check us
It's
out
a wrap.
thegardensociety.com.
Yes.
You can find us
Check
on
it.
Instagram at GRDN Society. We're in California, Ohio, New Jersey, and the brand's called Garden Society.
All right. We cannot end without having the biggest gratitude to thank those that are behind the scenes. Alex Sully, our creative director and producer. Becky Davis, our talented director of photography. Kristen West, our brilliant brand and design expert. And of course, thanks to all of you for making our vision of Humanize Her come to life.